I showed up to my nephew's birthday, arms full of gifts, only to find an empty house. No balloons, no music, just silence. Confused, I called my brother. He laughed. "Oh yeah, we moved the party, forgot to tell you. Loser." My stomach dropped. I didn't say a word, just hung up. Let the silence speak for me, but they'd regret it, eventually. I stood there on the porch, the wind tugging at the ribbons on the presents, my hands aching from the weight. Still, I didn't move. I stared at the door, clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, I had the wrong day. Maybe they were late. Maybe someone would pull up with an apologetic grin, calling it a mix-up. But the house stayed dark. The driveway stayed empty. I shifted the gifts, knocked once. Then again, louder. Rang the bell, nothing. The silence wrapped around me like a fog as I pulled out my phone. No messages from Luke, nothing from Melissa, not even a simple, "Hey, plans changed." I took a breath, hit call. Luke answered after a few rings, groggy and dismissive. "Oh yeah, we moved the party." A pause. Then that smug little chuckle. "Forgot to tell you, loser." I felt the blood drain from my face. Forgot to tell me after everything? I'd spent weeks picking those gifts. Took the day off work, drove across town. Stood out in the cold just to be forgotten. No, ignored. He wasn't sorry. He thought it was a joke. I could hear the laughter in his voice like I was just some punchline. I didn't ask where the party was. Didn't ask why. I just hung up, gripping the presents too tightly as a cold emptiness pooled in my chest. Then quietly, I turned and walked to my car. I set the gifts on the passenger seat, closed the door, sat behind the wheel, staring out through the windshield. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Anger, grief, humiliation. Maybe I should have cried. Maybe I should have screamed. But all I felt was tired. This wasn't new. Luke had always been this way, the golden child. Untouchable, always forgiven. And me, I was the one who had to be strong, the one who got left behind. Still, I kept trying to be the good sister, trying to matter. I thought it would be different with Ethan. He didn't know the history, the favoritism, the hurt. To him, I was just auntie, the one who read him stories, the one who made him laugh, the one he clung to when it was time to leave. I did this for him, and yet here I was, uninvited, not even worth a text. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, turning my phone over in my hands. I thought about messaging Mom, about telling her what happened, demanding to know why no one had bothered to tell me. But I already knew the answer. "Oh, Jenna, it was just a little mistake. You know how Luke is. Always the same. Just like when we were kids and he stole my things. Just like when he humiliated me in front of his friends. Just like every time I cleaned up the messes he made as an adult. Financial chaos, emotional wreckage. And never got so much as a thank you. I wasn't forgotten. I was never considered to begin with." I let out a slow breath and opened my banking app. Luke had been struggling lately, or so Mom and Dad kept insisting. I should help him, they said. Because family supports each other. Because I was doing well enough to carry the weight. So I did. 4 months of rent help, cash transfers when he was short. School trips, new clothes, little extras for Ethan. Always me. A few taps, and it was done. I closed the app, tossed my phone onto the passenger seat, and started the car. For the first time in years, I felt free. No guilt. No second guessing. Just a calm, quiet kind of peace. I didn't send an angry text. Didn't call to demand apologies. I let silence do what words never could. And I waited. It didn't take long. A few days later, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "Hey, sweetie, haven't heard from you in a while. Ethan was asking about you. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen, my lips pressed into a tight line. Now they noticed. Now, after their little party, after I stood alone in the cold with gifts in my arms, after Luke laughed in my face. Now they cared. I started typing. Did Ethan ask about me before or after he opened all the presents I bought him? My thumb hovered over send. Then I deleted it. I wasn't going to waste another breath explaining myself to people who never really saw me. I dropped the phone, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door, not to chase after them, not to fix anything, but to finally do something for myself. I didn't reply to Mom's text. Instead, I just stared at it, read it again and again, as if the words might shift, as if maybe, just maybe, this time she'd say something real. "I'm sorry, Jenna. I didn't know. I should have said something." But of course she didn't. "Hey, sweetie, haven't heard from you in a while. Ethan was asking about you. Are you okay?" That was it. No acknowledgement, no explanation, not even a flimsy excuse. Just a soft, casual message. Like I hadn't been deliberately left out of my nephew's birthday. Like I'd simply drifted away. For years, I had been the one reaching out. The one who kept the lines open. The one who cared enough to show up. I was the one who made the plans. The one who never let too much time pass without checking in, sending a text, making a call. Always the one holding the thread together. But now I was done. I let the silence stretch, 3 whole days, before my dad finally called. For a moment, I hovered over the decline button, tempted to let it ring out, but curiosity won. A quiet part of me wanted to know, would he acknowledge it? "Hey, Dad." "Hey, kiddo," he said, all casual ease, like nothing had happened. "Haven't talked to you in a bit. Everything good?" I leaned back into the couch, tightening my grip on the phone. "Yeah, Dad, everything's great." There was a pause, short, tense, like he'd been expecting a different answer. I knew what he was waiting for, me to bring it up. Why didn't anyone tell me about Ethan's party? So he could brush it off, make it small, tidy it up with some throwaway excuse. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. "You sure?" he asked after a beat. "Your mom said she texted but didn't hear back." "Yep." Another pause. Then he cleared his throat. Listen. Your brother said you haven't been answering his calls. He said you two had a misunderstanding." I almost laughed. A misunderstanding. Right. I drew a breath, steadying the sting in my chest. "I don't think there was any misunderstanding, Dad." "Well, you know how Luke is," he said, quick and rehearsed. "He jokes around. He doesn't mean anything by it. He didn't really forget to tell you." "Then why didn't he?" I cut in, my voice sharper than I intended. Silence. I could hear him shifting on the other end, scrambling for a way out. "That's not the point," he finally said. "The point is, you shouldn't let something like this drive a wedge between family." I blinked, stunned. Something like this, like it was nothing, like I was the one holding the knife. I swallowed hard, anger pressing at the back of my throat. "Dad." I stood outside their house, with an armful of presents. "Do you have any idea how that felt?" His voice softened, the way it always did when he thought I just needed a little gentle persuasion. "I get it, sweetheart. But you know Luke, he's never been the most responsible. He probably thought someone else told you." I let out a bitter, breathless laugh. "And that's supposed to make it better?" He sighed. "I'm just saying, don't be so quick to cut ties over something small." Something small? I closed my eyes, the phone shaking in my hand, my fingers aching from how tightly I held it. This wasn't small. This was every Christmas where Luke got the shiny, expensive gift and I got socks. Every time he broke my things and Mom and Dad looked the other way. Every dinner where I picked up the tab. Every birthday I remembered while mine went ignored. Every single time I showed up for this family and they forgot I existed. No, Dad, this wasn't small. This was just the final straw. "I'm not cutting ties," I said at last. "I'm just done putting effort where it's not appreciated." Silence. Then, flatly, "You're being dramatic." I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "Maybe." And I ended the call before he could say another word. I waited for the guilt to hit. It didn't. Instead, I felt lighter, and that's when it hit me. Dad had called. Mom had texted. But Luke, nothing, not a word. I didn't hear from him until 2 days later. My phone lit up with his name. I didn't answer. A minute later, a message came through. "Damn, still mad? You're really gonna be this petty?" I stared at the screen, feeling nothing but detachment. A week ago, I might have written a paragraph. I would have poured out my hurt, tried to make him understand, begged him to care, just a little. But not this time. I turned off my phone and went on with my day. 2 days later, another text, this time from Mom. "Hey, sweetheart, I hate to ask, but Luke's struggling with rent again. Any chance you could help?" I actually laughed. Out loud, no apology, no acknowledgement. Just another request. For money. I typed back one word. Number. And it felt good. Really, really good. After that, the silence deepened. No calls, no texts, no guilt trips from mom, no smooth-over attempts from dad. Nothing. At first, it felt strange. For so long, I had been the glue, the one who reached out, kept in touch, made the plans, held the family together with both hands. Now, I was doing nothing. And the silence, it stretched longer than I'd expected. It confirmed what I had always feared, but never wanted to admit. If I wasn't the one putting in the effort, no one else would. Not my parents, not Luke. They could go days, weeks, even months without checking in, without asking where I was, without even noticing I was gone. And I let that truth sink in, quiet and heavy. But just as I was starting to get used to the quiet, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't expected. Melissa, Luke's wife. I stared at the screen, hesitating. I hadn't spoken to her since before the party. She'd never reached out before, not directly. She wasn't cruel, like Luke, but she wasn't warm either. She just existed in the background. I let the call ring out, then came the text. Hey Jenna, hope you're doing okay. Ethan has been asking about you a lot. Just wanted to let you know. I read it 3 times, my stomach twisting with every word. No mention of what happened, no apology. Just a casual, hey, your nephew misses you. As if I had vanished for no reason at all. I didn't know what to say. Ethan was the reason I held on for so long. The reason I kept showing up, kept forgiving, kept pretending. He was the only one who ever made me feel wanted. And now he was caught in the middle. I thought about replying, about saying something, anything, but I didn't. If Melissa really cared, she would have spoken up sooner. If my absence truly meant something, maybe they should have thought of that before leaving me out in the cold. I set the phone down, ignored the message. The next day, another text from my mom. Hey sweetie, are you free this Sunday? We're all getting together for dinner. Hope to see you there. I actually laughed. Still no mention of the party, no acknowledgement. Just another cheery message, like I was supposed to come running now that they'd remembered I existed. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, Dad called. I let it ring. Then Luke texted. Mom says you're ignoring everyone. You gonna keep acting like a brat or what? There it was. The truth behind all this sudden concern. They hadn't reached out because they missed me. They reached out because they'd noticed I was gone. And now they didn't like it. I stayed silent. No replies, no explanations. I let the quiet speak for me. And then, about a week later, everything shifted. I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw it. A post from my aunt, a photo from the Sunday dinner. Everyone was there. My parents, Melissa, the cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone except me. The caption, so great to see the whole family together again. I stared at it, my stomach nodding. Not because I wanted to be there, but because it was proof. Cold, clear proof. They didn't forget me. They just didn't care. I closed the app, shoved my phone aside, tried to swallow the sting creeping back in. I should have expected it, should have known better. But then, something I didn't expect. A text from my aunt. Hey Jenna, I just realized I didn't see you at dinner. Everything okay? I blinked at the screen, my chest tightening. She noticed. Someone actually noticed. I took a breath and typed out a simple reply. I wasn't invited. No explanation, no overthinking, just the truth. Minutes later, another ping. Are you serious? I thought you were just busy. I didn't reply. Then another message, this time from my cousin, Emma. Hey, Aunt Marie said you weren't at dinner. What happened? And just like that, the cracks began to form. People were noticing, people were asking, and for once, my family didn't have a good answer. The next morning, the calls started. First Mom, then Dad, then Melissa, and finally, Luke. I didn't answer any of the calls, not one. Then, later that night, the final text came in, from my mom. Jenna, we need to talk. I smiled to myself and powered off my phone. Now they wanted to talk. Now they were worried. Now, when it was too late, I let the message sit there, unread like all the rest. For years, I had been the fixer. The one who reached out first. The one who swallowed her pride, forgave, forgot, smoothed everything over, for the sake of keeping the family together. But not anymore. I wasn't going to make it easy. If they wanted to talk, they'd have to sit in the discomfort first. A few days passed, then Dad called again. This time, I picked up. "Jenna," he said, voice careful, cautious, like he was walking across thin ice. "Why haven't you been answering your mother?" I leaned back into the couch, keeping my voice even. "Did she tell you what happened?" A pause. "She said you were upset about Ethan's party." I gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "That's all she said?" "Well, she said Luke forgot to tell you. And now you're making a big deal out of it." "Did she mention that I showed up to an empty house?" I asked. Another pause. "That I stood there with my arms full of presents like an idiot?" He sighed. "Jenna, come on." "That Luke laughed in my face and called me a loser?" Silence. I could picture him there, rubbing his temple, trying to find the right words to smooth everything over without ever really taking responsibility. Finally, he said, "Your mom feels really bad about it." My mom, not Luke. "She's trying to fix things." There it was, not apologize, not take accountability, just fix it, patch it, get me back in my place. "So that's why you're calling," I said. "Because Mom doesn't like that people are asking questions." Another sigh, drawn out and tired. "Jenna, don't do this." "Do what?" I snapped. "Make this into something bigger than it is?" "You know how Luke is. He jokes around." "I'm done making excuses for him," I said, cutting him off. "And I'm done being the one who always has to be the bigger person. No one in this family ever does that for me." Silence. And then, with that same weary voice, he asked, "So what do you want?" For a split second, I almost felt sorry for him. He wasn't used to this. Wasn't used to me drawing a line. He thought if he kept me talking long enough, I'd cave. I always did. But not this time. "I don't want anything," I said quietly. "I just want you to see things for what they are." He didn't know what to do with that. After a long pause, he mumbled, "I'll talk to your mother." Then he hung up. I didn't expect much from it. But a few hours later, my phone rang again. My mom. I let it ring, let it go to voicemail. Then her voice soft and urgent. "Jenna, please call me back. I don't want this to get worse than it already is." I stared at my phone, shaking my head. Worse than it already is? Worse for who? Because it sure as hell wasn't worse for them. It was just the first time they were finally being forced to feel it. Or for them. Because from where I was standing, they were the ones unraveling. And me, I was doing just fine. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Melissa. "Hey, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but Luke is really upset. Can you at least talk to him?" I rolled my eyes. He was upset. He was the one hurting. I had spent years trying to be a good sister. Years showing up, giving, forgiving. That morning, I had been genuinely excited. To see Ethan, to celebrate with family, to make memories. Instead, I stood outside their empty house in the cold, arms full of gifts, and got laughed at, called a loser. And now Luke was upset? I ignored the text. A few hours later, another message came through, this time from Luke himself. "Are you seriously still mad? Get over it." That was it. No apology, no ownership, no hint of remorse. Just the same old dismissal. And honestly, that was all I needed. I didn't reply. A week passed. The texts slowed. The calls faded. Then one night, a message popped up from my aunt. "Hey, are you coming to Grandma's birthday next weekend? Haven't seen you in forever." I stared at it. Something tightening in my chest. Another family event. Another opportunity to be excluded, to be overlooked. So I waited. Waited for my parents to reach out. Waited for Luke to say something. Nothing. So I made my decision. I texted my aunt back. "Yeah, I'll be there. No announcement, no asking permission. I just showed up." And the second I walked into that restaurant, I felt it. The shift. My cousins lit up, genuine smiles, real warmth. My aunt hugged me tight. But my mom? She looked caught off guard, like she hadn't expected me to actually come. Luke and Melissa were camped out at the far end of the table. Luke didn't even look at me. Melissa offered a tight, uncertain smile. And that's when it hit me. They weren't in control anymore. They couldn't erase me from this. I was here, and they were just going to have to live with it. My mom tried to pretend like nothing had happened, chatting with me like everything was normal, but I could see it in her eyes. She was waiting for me to cave, to say something first, to smooth it over, but I didn't. I ate. I laughed with the people who actually cared. I let the others fade into the background. And for the first time, they were the ones feeling left out. After dinner, as people were starting to head out, my dad pulled me aside. "You should talk to your brother," he said. I looked him dead in the eye, voice steady. "Why?" He blinked, like the question hadn't even occurred to him. "Because this is ridiculous," he said. "Your family." I smiled, calm and quiet. Funny, that's what I used to think too. Then I turned and walked away. No goodbye for Luke, no comfort for Mom, no peace offering to keep the illusion alive. I didn't fix a thing. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free.